Hannah, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. We're making it there. So, Hannah, for our audience who doesn't know much about you, can you just give us a brief background on yourself and specifically, in your LinkedIn profile, 6 countries, 4 different languages. Can you tell us more?
So I got a head start probably on most people because I was born into this and had no choice. My dad was in the oil business, so he moved our family every 1 or 2 or 3 years throughout my life. So I was born in Houston, but we lived in Holland when I was really little, Moscow, Russia. We moved back to the US and then lived in Alaska and Houston again, and then went back over to Russia. I did a internship in London. I lived in kind of back and forth in Africa for a while, studied abroad in Hong Kong while I was at BC. And I don't think I've ever lost the travel bug. So I love to explore the world and learn about new cultures and ways of life and food, etc.
That's amazing. There's a saying, "Semper paratus," in the Navy, always ready. So being able to move and be able to see a lot of the world at such a young age kind of gives you that distinct advantage of being flexible in where you are. Would you say so? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you don't really have a choice. I mean, basically, my dad would say, well, I remember my summer after ninth grade, we were in Houston and we had just moved back from Alaska. And my dad was like, over the summer, hey, we're moving to Moscow again. And we were like, wait, what? Like, we had no idea that was going to happen. So just being kind of forced at a young age to quickly kind of rebuild and figure out life was definitely part of my DNA and continues to be so. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so could you tell us a little bit more about what work currently looks like for you? I know because when you graduated BC at the age of 22, you knew exactly you'd be doing this job right now when you're.
Totally. um, so currently I serve as the executive director of an organization called Freedom Communities. And we are what's called a place-based initiative, a nonprofit working in a very specific geography in Charlotte, North Carolina. We focus on 3 core things: affordable housing, early childhood education, and then I like to call us the connective tissue, bringing together the neighbors and the public and private and faith-based organizations that kind of work in the area around a unified vision for the community's future.
It's amazing. And how would you say in your current role, have you seen the impact of COVID-19 and social distancing, quarantine? How does that impact the daily operations of your nonprofit, and how have you guys kind of maneuvered around that?
Yeah, I mean, we've really focused in kind of 3 core areas. Number one, we have a really strong partnership with a local preschool in the neighborhood that has 166 families. So we've been able to connect them with food, with books, with cash assistance during this time. The second thing that we've done, we've kind of leveraged that connective framework that I was talking about to be able to collect resources from all the different groups that are in the community and deploy them back out so that everybody can be on the same page as to what's out there. And then really third, one of our team members, he's coordinating 24 emergency feeding sites around Charlotte that are helping to feed some of the most in need families during this time. And so he's been more out and about, I would say, than the rest of us have. In terms of like actually face-to-face with families, but otherwise a lot of our work is as you would imagine has really moved virtually. So we've tons of Zoom calls. I honestly don't know what number this is for the week, but I used to work virtually, so this is kind of like it's kind of neat to go back onto Zoom. I know some tips and tricks that others might not know, so I've been able to look a little savvy technologically.
So we may have to leverage some of those Zoom tips and tricks at the end of this. That's awesome. And I'm sure like you mentioned, the connective framework has kind of allowed you guys to continue to weather this storm. I know you recently had a good fundraising round to get resources back into the hands of people who really need it. And I'm sure having that connective tissue in place has been very helpful.
Yeah, we're actually also raising a fund right now. The goal is to get to $250,000 by next week. That would help meet emergency needs for families, specifically like rent, and whatever else arises that's going to be coming up.
That's amazing. Well, I wish you guys will get it done. Awesome. And
Thanks.
so now also, Hannah, BC alumni, I don't know if we said that, but could you walk us back a little bit? So the main emphasis for the show is for our students and to help them understand the multiplicity of career journeys that are out there. And when you were graduating during the heart of the last financial recession. Could you walk us through that kind of that environment, what it was like for you and kind of how you went about your job search?
Yeah, it was definitely chaotic. I graduated from CSOM with a degree in management. So my two focuses were operations and finance, and then I had a minor in Russian. I remember just I'd done a couple internships two internships in Moscow with a telecom company, and then my junior year I did an internship with an investment bank in London, and thought that was the route that I was going to take. And of course, a lot of the banks, frankly, weren't hiring or didn't exist when I graduated. So really trying to figure out what I was going to do, had to take a couple different turns. And because I had lived internationally in high school, I graduated from high school in Moscow, Russia. I had really had this desire to understand, why life looks so different for me than for other people around the world. Like, I just happened to hit the family jackpot and was afforded so much more than so many others. And I just felt that there was a great deal of injustice about that. And so throughout my time at BC, I just knew of a lot of other people who had done different volunteer things over the summer. And I really wanted to do something too. So I knew that I didn't want to just go straight into the workforce right after I graduated, that I really wanted to take some time to really explore what I was created to do and truly like how I could give back to the world. And so in conjunction with having, a really intense recession, I was also looking to take some time off, and nobody was allowing me to do that. So I remember interviewing with Citibank, and I was like, so how flexible are you guys in like kicking this out a little bit? And they were like, no. And so finally, I remember interviewing with General Electric for their FMP program. And I said, well, I'm really interested in taking some time off. And they were like, that's awesome, because we have a class that starts in the summer and we have a class that starts in January. And I was like, can I be in the January class? And they said, yes. And I said, well, then great, because that's what I want to do. So it was kind of this perfect, coincidence that there was this opportunity for me to go figure out what life was all about by going off and volunteering, but then also having some security when I came back to the US. And my mom was like, she was not okay with it at all, because she was so afraid that my job wouldn't be there when I came back. And she just was like, this is not a good idea. And but I think for me, I knew this is what I needed to do. And I'm so grateful that I did.
So at an early age, you took the risk. So during the heart of it, you went to employers and you said, listen, I want to do something in this world, but there's also this other this other itch I want to scratch. And for you, that was kind of discovering and putting yourself in other people's shoes and understanding their world from their perspective. And so you went through that process and you found GE. And I have to give a quick shout out. I was part of the FMP program as well. Great training and gives you technical expertise. So you went to them and they got you started in January. And so now you have all this time from graduating in May to starting work in January of the year you graduated. Did you just sit on your laurels when you got this, or tell me more, what happened?
I visited one of my friends in Chile, and I visited another one of my friends in Ecuador, and we had a great time. And then I went to volunteer in Tanzania for 3 months. With an organization called IVHQ. And they placed me with a Tanzanian woman who had started a center for orphan and vulnerable children in her community. And she really just had this vision to transform her community holistically through education and microfinance. And I honestly had no idea how I could help her, because I was just out of college, and I just said, what can I do to help? And so we started pretty easily, found out that they had like maybe 2 weeks worth of food left. And, I said, well, how much does that cost? And it was like $35 a week to feed all the kids. And then I said, well, that was easy. What else can we do? And we started, we got the water to the city's water department to come out and do a water tower. And then we built their first school. And so during a course of 3 months, I realized that I was connected to this global network of individuals who could really help accelerate the vision and dreams of these incredible grassroots leaders that had a vision, but just simply lacked access to the resources to realize that vision. And for me, it was so easy to pick up the phone and call my family or, my network and friends to make that vision possible. And so I could see just in the span of a couple of months, children who were previously malnourished come fully to life, and knew that this was something that I was created to do, is to figure out how to, how to help these, like how to really leverage my network to make the lives better for others. So I went off to GE, started my job, and then started a nonprofit.
That's amazing. And so essentially, like you're saying, you take this time off, you travel the world. So my colleague, Amy Dunnigan, and I'll make sure this is linked in the show notes, she had posts things to do to take advantage of kind of the weird environment we're entering, and kind of how to maximize your time. And it doesn't have to be necessarily efficient, but you went out, you traveled, you got to see the world, you were in South America, and then you went to Africa, and you were able to see opportunity there. And for you not even trying to, you gained a skill set. You connected people from your network with people who are local, who didn't have access to the resources. You were the broker in that relationship, and you probably used some skills you never really even thought of. So question for you, in your young career journey, so now you're in this great position. Could you talk to us just about some of the, I like to call it the tools and toolbox, or acquiring skills, and then those skills become transferable as you go from corporate to nonprofit. And now you're raising funds and managing funds and allocating that capital. Could you tell us about some of the early tools that you developed and added to your toolbox that have kind of allowed you to continue to grow and be successful in future roles that have bigger and more complex issues at hand?
What I did through the FMP program, one of my rotations was like taking apart organizations and putting them back together. We had so many different, what they called recasts, where we blew up businesses and put them all back. And so that really had, really instilled like almost like an engineering mindset for me, where I like to think about processes and, how all the pieces fit together, and what the impact of this thing has on that thing. One of my bosses, from a messaging perspective, he told me, very clearly, all right, you got all this information, that's great, but if you can't break it down into 3 bullet points for me, I'm not going to hear it. So that was really impactful for me as a 20-something, to think through, how do I synthesize all the things that I want to say into really quick bite-sized nuggets that my boss could then take with them. So, those were some of the basics. And I think influencing different people towards different decisions was, I had a really interesting role in the recast, where I had like 7 different business leaders that I had to give different costs to. We broke up our business into 7 different pieces, and having to relationally work with these different teams and these different personalities and negotiate, I think those skills were really invaluable for me.
When you were going through this, because I think this kind of transitions into, when you're in your first job, you may not be in the exact role that you think is your calling, but you're kind of crafting and developing yourself. When you were going through this, did you see what you were developing, or was it kind of just every day you're going through the dark and you're just trying to punch and fight and make it day by day?
I think some days were easier than others, right?
Absolutely.
There was a spell there where I didn't get home before 11 p.m. For a while, which I think teaches you resilience. But yeah, I think time, gives perspective. So for me to be, outside of GE and able to apply a lot of the things that I was learning while at GE to the nonprofit that I was building by night, I could see really quickly how the skills that I was developing in the business setting were helpful to develop in the nonprofit setting as well.
And that shows the kind of transferable skills. GE is a lot different than a nonprofit in Charlotte, but you're using very similar skills and building on top of those.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So if I'm a student and I'm listening to this and I've heard this, maybe I'm interested in going into the nonprofit world, or I just really resonate with your background. What are some big takeaways that I can take from this for a student, from a student's perspective?
A lot of times people ask me, do I need to go to the business world before I go to the nonprofit world? And I don't think there's like a magic formula to get here, right? There's nothing that if you do step A and B, you get to C. That's, I think it's very individual, and it's also playing to your passions and your strengths. And you can be kind of tricked easily by the pay of a corporate job that just makes you sacrifice the things that you are passionate about. And so you're likely to take a corporate job versus something that in your heart you're supposed to be doing. And for me, that heartbeat just pounded through every day that I was at GE, and I knew what I was created to do, but I was just afraid to take the risk because I had no idea I was going to make money. And so I would just say, don't be afraid to follow your passion. And secondly, do the work of figuring out what you're passionate about. Like, what makes you angry? Like, what makes you get up in the morning? Like, what makes you full of life? Like, those are the things that we need to be paying attention to, because those are the things that are going to indicate to us like what we're individually oriented to be successful at. And so I went and did the GE program, which I would never trade for anything. It was great. I had to unlearn a lot of things that I learned at GE to be successful in the nonprofit world.
Absolutely.
But I would just say, 3 things. Don't let somebody else decide what success looks like for you, because you're the only one who knows what that is. Don't be afraid of the unknown. I heard this amazing sermon that actually kind of catapulted me into this work was by a pastor that said, don't be afraid of the unknown, consider it an adventure. If you don't pick up your cross and follow me, you'll never find any peace in your life. And so for me, that was a big wake up moment. And I would just say in persistence, right? Be persistent. Not every day is going to be rainbows and sunshine, but you're going to learn lessons through it all, and be willing to fail.
If you're listening to this, you got to go back and just listen to that over again, because there's just so many great nuggets in there. There is no magic. That's I think one of the most powerful ones. You have to kind of define what success is for you, and have to define what your journey is going to be. And I think the other thing is, when you play to your passions and your strengths, you kind of naturally will get up in the morning each day and feel like you're serving a greater purpose than just yourself. And I think that's something that BC teaches very well. So really, really insightful, and thank you for that.
Yeah, sure.
So without further ado, one of my favorite sections is, and as a BC alumni, I hope it is too, is the once an Eagle, always an Eagle. Are you ready?
I hope so.
Okay, let's see. So Friday night, it's about 1:15. You just got back to campus. Mary Ann's is closing down for the night. You go to Lower Live, late night. What are you ordering?
Froyo. I mean, that's probably my go-to.
Froyo. They had the for, is it like the for real, the milkshake machine? It's good.
Oh, we didn't have a milkshake machine. We had
Let me
just
stop talking.
Yeah, whoa. You guys busted out the big guns. No, we just had like frozen yogurt, the little machine, like.
Fair enough. Solid.
Yeah.
Great. Second question. Favorite professor, administrator, or staff at BC?
So I have two. Is that okay?
It's okay.
They're both very different. So Professor Taylor, I
Ed
don't know.
Taylor,
Yeah, he's the
ET,
best.
shout out.
He's the best. And then Professor McCransky, two things. I took comparative theology with Buddhism and Christianity, and then I took was it Buddhism or no, meditation and social service my senior year, which was an amazing class. It was like 2 hours and you meditated for a good chunk of it. But it was just he was a great professor. So
Love it. And I'm sure that class gave you just a whole different perspective and way to think.
oh yeah.
And then final question, one thing everyone should try to do or do before they graduate from BC.
So my education experience at BC was a little unique because I was really involved with the international community there. I was an international orientation leader and did a ton with the exchange students. And so I would say if you don't get a chance to study abroad while you're at BC, do something that exposes you to just a myriad of different cultures and countries that are on campus, because there's tons of them. And it was so fun and enriching for my life to be able to be exposed to people from around the globe who had so much that they could teach me.
Get outside your bubble. That's awesome. That's awesome. Hannah, it's really been a pleasure. I really hope that our students enjoy this as much as I've enjoyed talking to you and getting to know you and how you think. If I'm a student, this resonates with me. You know, I'm kind of jumping out of my chair or my seat or wherever I'm listening to this. What's the best way I can get in contact with you?
Just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I may be a little slow in responding because life's a little chaotic right now with COVID-19. Unfortunately, our industry has not slowed down, so we're like full steam ahead. But I'd be happy, and I've been an Eagle expert, not this past year, but in the past, and loved it. And so I'd be happy to set aside some time if anyone wanted to catch up.
Wonderful. So we'll make sure we have your LinkedIn bio and or profile in the show notes as well. But Hannah, it's been a pleasure, and keep fighting the good fight. And I'm really excited to see when I hear good things coming out of Charlotte, I know why. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Take care.
Take care.